Um, of another one's or the voices. They're laughing again, and they're making a crowd around them even. And I just really don't see the point of them continuing on and making such a big deal about it because I mean it's her it's just a pencil. She tripped and fell in the hallway. Like why is this so terrible to make fun of her for so long? Like maybe if it fell out from behind her ear and she tripped over it again, maybe that might be funnier because oh look she's such a klutz. She keeps tripping over and over again. That makes a little more sense. But just to prolong it for so much, it seems kind of off. On your next one, you bring in Ian, and he's standing up for her a little bit, but we're not really sure that it's the same guy, because you talk about this guy helping her up, but then you say that there were voices from behind, and some guy starts talking. So just make a little reference maybe before, so we know a little more about him, and make sure that we know that this is the same guy, that it's not just some random person who stood up for her in the hallway. Um, there's a little bit of awkward action just when she's talking to him and she says thanks, trying to get away, looking for her class. I would encourage you to actually act this out because she's looking around and shaking his hand and then looking around again and then kind of backing up and looking around again, and obviously she's looking the whole time, so we don't need to repeat that because I mean she's walking around with her eyes open so she sees stuff, but it seemed kind of awkward the way you described it. Maybe you could just make it flow a little bit better. Well, one of the last things that doesn't really hit me and doesn't make any sense to me or Daniel is all the while my thoughts were keeping time with my feet as they pounded down the hallway. And I gotta give it to her. She's got skills if her thoughts are in sync with her pounding feet. That is awesome. I want to see that. But I've never heard of this happening before, and I don't know anyone else who does it. So, um, change it up, please, because most people don't think in time to their feet falling. And so just a way to make it more realistic there by kind of dropping out of that.
The next part, her thought processes are back to your complete English thing, but you mentioned that she tripped some Hollister model, which I like because it's giving us more of an idea. This is a big guy. You refer to him as Goliath, as a Sasquatch, but he's not just like a big oaf type guy. He's a model type. He's really fit. He's the kind of guy, big guy that everyone likes. But the students do keep on laughing and laughing, but they're only laughing at her. They would probably laugh at him too. I mean, they would laugh at both of them. I mean, and if something happened involved, both of them tripped over each other again, like or her dropping the pencil, that would keep them laughing. But just them laughing at only her for so long, not quite as realistic. You used realized again here. I turned my head a little farther as I took another corner and realized. Now, realized. I'll just say this. I realize that using the word realize or realized makes it easier, but it's not good to use. Uh, it's you don't need to substitute a different word for it. You just need to cut it. And you say the guy I had tripped. Well, is that the guy who introduced himself earlier? Is that Ian? She wouldn't think of him as the guy she had tripped. She would think of him as Ian. Or she might think of him as both even. But she's not going to just think of him as the guy I had tripped if she found out his name. Um, then in the next thing, she turns around and then she arrives at her classroom and then he walks past. Well, you have your order of events messed up. You need to correct your order of events. The writing is fine. You just need to do a little cut and paste there, because she would arrive and then she would turn around at her classroom door. Because if she turns around, does that mean she's like flying backwards into her classroom door? Yeah, that would be painful. Um, I started after him, but soon realized, once again, realized that's easier to do, but it's not good. You could rephrase that and say, I started after him even though I was already late for my next class. Then later on in that thought, you say, let him know exactly what you're thinking of him. Well, when did she let him know what she was thinking of him? As far as I know, all she ever did was she said, thanks, I need to get to my class, and shook his hand. She never told him anything about what she thought about him, whether it was good or bad. Um, Next part, uh, you have this nice little chunk here. Uh, you can read it how you've written it. I'm going to read it how we would recommend you change it, and just say something like this. 4 hours later, the foremost thing on my mind was lunch. That's taking out most of what you said, but it's more to the point, and it's not distracting, because if you tell us, we already know all the other information, so we don't need you to tell us again. Later on, she shakes her head. Why is she shaking her head? There's no reason to shake her head. Um, Snickers bar. The S should be capitalized because Snickers is a brand. If you were just saying candy bar, then it would be a lowercase c. That's like a type. It's like saying pizza. But if you said Pizza Hut or Mazio's or like Domino's Pizza, you need to capitalize it. In this case, Snickers bar, it's a brand. Needs to be capitalized. And she eats crackers with it. She has very interesting snack tastes, which isn't bad. I do too. Next part, as I pulled it out and checked the caller ID, I stopped short. It just seems like an awkward wording. Might think about rewording it. The next part, though, staring back at me from the screen of my cell phone was a number I hadn't seen for years. Numbers can't stare. And that's what's staring back at her, is a cell phone number on her caller ID. Just can't happen. So just keep that in mind. She pressed the call button to answer it. It's the same button on cell phones nowadays, but the call, it's what button it is determined by the action it's doing. In this instance, it would be answering, not calling. So you could just say she answered the phone instead of pressing the call button, because we know she's going to be shaking from the dialogue. Next part, down towards in the dialogue, I've been looking for you, trying to figure out, finally lucked out. It kind of needs a rephrase. He's been looking, and then farther down, she asked him how many times he had to call. Well, and then he said, "Oh, I just called your uncle and got your new cell phone number." So it doesn't seem that it was actually that hard. It's kind of a confusing section.
So now you got a page break and you're moving on, and they're talking about what's going on and just everything. And it just luckily for you, this is the climax. This is where we're going down as far as how intense the critiquing is. So it's getting better from here. But one thing that you have is I started giggling at my own joke, but then soon noticed that Madison wasn't joining me. Wasn't even chuckling rather. I would maybe say he wasn't joining me. So we know that he wasn't doing it. Just chuckling seems it just felt a little weird. Um, you go on and you're saying that something in the back of my mind started nagging me, fighting for attention, but I pushed it back, unwilling to think about that. I don't. No matter how much I would love to have little secretaries running around in my head with like filing cabinets and pushing everything away and saying, no, don't think about that and pull it back, whatever. But there aren't, unfortunately. So most people don't say I push something back. Maybe something's bugging them, but they can't put their finger on it or whatever, or they don't want to think about it. But no one like just the way you phrase it, pushing it back, unwilling to think about it. Maybe just end it for something was vying for my attention, but I couldn't remember what, or I didn't want to think about it, or just ending it, something was vying for my attention. Because immediately he goes on and gives us an idea. Whoa, something's going on. Something happened on the 20th of December 10 years ago. We don't know. It's a huge question raised, but we want to know more. So he kind of gives us a little info, but not enough to satisfy us to keep us. So it keeps us reading. But he goes, I think you remember what happened 10 years ago. Well, if she was there and he knows she was there, I don't know if he would say, I think I know. He knows. So I know you remember because he knows that she was there. So it makes it more like he's positive. He's like, I don't care what you do to deny it. I know you know what happened. Um, you're just not willing to face it. He puts, just willing to face it, right? He doesn't need her confirmation on this. He knows. Because she's ignoring it. She's saying, oh, I don't remember what happened on the 20th of December. What are you talking about? So she doesn't need to confirm it. You can just say, you're just not willing to face it, period. You go on. That's kind of where I figured you were at. That's why I called. It seems kind of pointless because obviously that's where she's at. So maybe just cut those two sentences out. Say that's why I tried to find you. He obviously has a reason behind it, and he's trying to find her. He knows that she needs to face this now, so he's calling. Um, she starts she wipes tears from her eyes, but you never actually say when she started crying. So you might want to mention that somewhere in the conversation previous, so we know that she is emotional or signs that she's emotional and that she's crying. So it's not just like, oh, those tears, where did they come from? They're not just there. Finally, you have a really good section where she's thinking that makes sense as far as how you phrase it, and I really like it. So why did he have to bring this up today? Why does he have to bring it up at all? This is why I let 10 years go by without looking him up. He never could leave well enough alone. It's really good. A few changes as far as grammar. Why did he have to bring it up today? Because she's talking about something specific, and because you said it later on, why, and then why did he have to bring it up at all? Good phrases like those. Might cut out though. This is why I let 10 years go by without looking him up. Obviously, 10 years have gone by without looking him up. We know that. So maybe just go on and say he could never leave it well enough alone. Good. You don't really need to remind us that 10 years have gone by without her talking to him, because obviously they haven't talked in 10 years. Um, he says, Jessie girl, I know, period. But you can't keep running from the past. Maybe just make it sound a little more natural, saying, I know you're trying to deny it. He knows something's wrong, and he's making her face the fact that she is. He's saying, don't bother covering something up with me. I know that you know this. So it makes it a little more emphasis. Moving on, you know that. I know you do. Just take that out. Just say, you know that. Period. One thing that me and Daniel both love, this is probably my favorite part in this chapter, is this next sentence, and it's just beautiful. You did a really good job phrasing this, and may at first seem kind of wordy or long, but it really isn't. It's very poetic, and I love the way you say it. The desperation I could hear in his voice brought more tears cascading down my cheeks as the reservoirs that I had hidden away broke open and released the memories they had held captive for so many years. This is beautiful. And yes, amen. And just clap it away. It's just so good. And I put love, 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 and I drew stuff all around it because I love this scene. I mean, this little line right here. And if you were to, I would take that as your theme for the whole conversation. The fact that she's keeping something back, she's not admitting it, and she doesn't want him to remind her of it. And so you're building up to it, and this is a really good climax to that.
Okay, this next part, after the word accident, instead of a comma, would make that a period, would cut the word with and just say Madison crawled, past tense, not present tense action, because this is a flashback, crawled under my bed and told me that he was so sorry and he'd always be there with me. And this is a really traumatic moment. So children, even adults, in an emotional situation like this, even if someone tells them something, chances of them actually really remembering it are slim to none, really. So they're more likely to remember an action. So maybe crawled under the bed and hugged her, but and that would work better. The next part, met my dad's brother. You mean uncle? I mean, normally dad's brother would be an uncle, right? Just that whole section, though, would reword it. I think your emphasis might be slightly off, and finding out that I had to move to Seattle with them. I don't think the emphasis needs to so much be on moving to Seattle as the fact that she's leaving where she is, so the fact that she was leaving home, not moving to Seattle. Jessie, Madison's gentle voice, dragged me back to the present. That's a slightly contradictory wording you have there. If his voice is gentle, I would hope it wouldn't drag anyone anywhere. Madison's gentle voice brought me back to the present. If it drags her, it's not a gentle voice.